What up, YouTube? This is KSI MIKIESCENE for Noob Combos. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the mantis and whether or not it's overpowered. I personally don't believe that the mantis is overpowered. It is one of my favorite vehicles because it is a strong player on big maps, but it's not overpowered. A couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about is, piloting a mantis, do's and don'ts, trying to take down a mantis, do's and don'ts, and then, the basic things people don't really think about. So, first off, piloting a mantis, do's and don'ts. Piloting a mantis, it's not hard. You're pretty much walking around with a gun on two legs. Doing it well is another story. Really being able to pilot the mantis to its full potential takes practice. And that's a thing too, getting into big team battles, it's harder to get into the mantis. There's a lot more people that want it. With Capture the Flag, I found is a really good place to practice with the mantis and really get good with it, because not a lot of people go for the mantis on Capture the Flag. It's only 5 players, it's not, you don't have 3 more guys rushing for it, and it's easier to know where your opponents are going to be in a Capture the Flag game than in a Slayer game. If you have big team battle, you've got guys everywhere, where the strong points are in the field shift at all times. You can hold one end for a couple minutes, and then next thing you know, you don't have that side of the field anymore, and it's really difficult to move a mantis around and have support from your team in a Slayer match, whereas in a Capture the Flag match, you know where their point of interest is at all times, and you know where they're going to be, so it really allows you the freedom to kind of take a couple more seconds and really feel out what works for you with a mantis and what doesn't. So yeah, the do's and don'ts. One thing that's really important when you're talking about successfully piloting a mantis and keeping it alive is always being aware of your surroundings. You have a radar for a reason. Make sure you're using it, and make sure you're giving yourself a wide berth when you're going through certain areas. If you're coming up around a rock and the enemy behind it isn't moving, he's not going to show up on your radar, and it's only going to take a second for him to get behind you and take you down. So make sure you always give yourself enough room to move. Also, on the other end of that, you don't want to be standing in the open, because the mantis it's not hard to shoot. It's pretty difficult to hide a mantis. I mean, the thing is huge. So you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in a spot where you have enough room to maneuver, especially if you get EMP'd, and if somebody drops your shield, you can get behind something and at least, give yourself enough time for your shield to regen, but at the same time, you don't want to be standing out in the open. So, as you're practicing and as you're playing through, a lot of the BTB maps, you get queued into them in Capture the Flag as well. So it'll give you an opportunity to try it out on a bunch of different maps and see where you feel comfortable. In this video, I got a little ballsy and decided to go behind their base. It actually worked out pretty well, because only a couple of them were really worried about me. The other guys were really worried about capturing flags. So I mean, it did afford me the opportunity to do a couple silly things, like switch mantises while there's somebody shooting at me, and just sit there and dance around behind their base in the open. Not talking crap, but these guys weren't that good, and that's one of the things I really wanted to talk about is what you can and can't do to take down a mantis, what you should or shouldn't be doing. Like I said, make sure you're giving yourself plenty of room to move around, but you're not standing in the open. The other thing is, when you do get EMP'd, because if you're going to spend a considerable amount of time in a mantis, if it's something that you want to start working on and get better with, you have to know that you're going to get EMP'd at some point. It's gonna happen. That's the biggest thing when you're trying to take down a mantis is EMP. So know what to do when you do catch an EMP. The most important thing to do when you get stunned is to know that it's not over. You're not dead just because you got stunned. What I mean is, you can move your reticle freely when you're stunned. Now granted, you're not going to point that direction until the stun drops, but you should definitely be pointing that reticle at your enemy. You should definitely have it pointed on them as soon as you get stunned, so as soon as it drops, you're able to start pulling the trigger and racking off rounds. Let's say there's somebody right in front of you and they're running at you, you get EMP'd out of nowhere. The first thing you do is identify your closest target, point your reticle at them so you're ready to go. The second thing you're going to want to do is backpedal, and that kind of goes into giving yourself plenty of room to move around. Backpedaling in the mantis is pivotal, because you want to make sure you're keeping room between your enemy and you. The closer you let them get to you, the more vulnerable you are to be taken down. There's a couple more things, but those are the more important things. Sidestepping is always good too. Kind of, walking to the side and backwards when you're attacking enemies, or when they're attacking you, really helps keeping you out of trouble. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, it's the common sense sort of things. But then, taking down a mantis. That's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have an anti-vehicle loadout. Mine is a plasma pistol, a DMR, mobility, awareness, and a jetpack. Those are the things that I've found work the best for me so far. Mobility allows you to get, to be able to run up on a vehicle and know you're not going to stall out, you're not going to go back to the regular run speed. The jetpack is nice for maneuvering, coming up over a hill and dropping an EMP on a vehicle, giving that a little bit extra of an element of surprise. Awareness is nice to have because it allows you to scope in with the DMR and still be able to see your radar. And I mean, it's just nice to have an anti-vehicle loadout, even if you're not going to use it all the time. It's nice to have for when you need it, because you're going to end up getting into a game where you're really going to need to be able to take down a vehicle and you're not going to have anything for it, and you're going to really wish that you did. If you have a friend that you play with a lot, it's always nice to see if they have one as well. I think a big part of the problem in this game for the team we were playing against is they just weren't prepared for it. I think there was only like 2 guys that actually had anything that were actually able to load out with and do something about this mantis. And like I said, not trying to be that guy, but the guys that did have something that they were able to use weren't that good. They weren't prepared for a mantis parked behind their base. So yeah, like I said, EMP, make sure you have a loadout, make sure you can put the stun on them. One really important thing is to keep aggro on it. If you have 2 or 3 teammates that aren't doing anything, they should be dumping rounds into the mantis, dropping that shield, so if one of your teammates does have an opportunity that they can take on the mantis, it'll be that much easier for them to take it down. The shield is more than likely going to be down, and when you keep putting rounds on a mantis like that, it forces him into spots that mantis pilots don't like being in. It forces him to back up around that corner that he didn't want to have to back up around. It forces him into a corner. It forces him back behind his base, so he has to let his shields regen, so he's not out there dumping rounds. And it gives your team the opportunity to really get closer and do something about it. So keeping pressure on it at all times, that's really important. Another thing is if you're going to be on a map where there's something that'll allow you to take care of a mantis, like Ragnarok, there's a Spartan laser right in the middle of the field as soon as the game starts. Talk to one of your friends. If you guys can't get in your mantis right away, make sure somebody's going center field and securing that power weapon so that you can at least do something about theirs. You may not be piloting your mantis, but at least someone is, and they don't have one. That's going to make it that much easier for you guys to really get a good field presence and really be able to command the field the way you want and win the game, which is really what the mantis is for. It's not a standalone game winner, but it definitely helps. I'm not a pro mantis driver by any means, I'm not saying that at all, but I really hope this video helped. Just taking a little bit of what I've learned, it's worked out pretty well for me. I hope you liked the video. Make sure to drop in a like or a comment if you liked it. By all means, don't touch that button if you didn't. And like I said, this is KSI MIKIESCENE with Noob Combos, and I hope you enjoyed the video.